In a jaw-dropping escalation, a Houthi drone strike has slammed into a hotel in Israel's resort city of Eilat, sending shockwaves across the region. Now, the IDF is threatening to unleash what it calls hell on Yemen. What does this mean for the Middle East? And how close are we to a new, all-out regional war? Stay tuned, because this story is bigger than you think. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Today's story is nothing short of explosive, both literally and politically. Imagine this islet, a coastal city usually known for its tourism, beaches, and vibrant nightlife, suddenly turned into the scene of destruction after a Houthi drone managed to bypass Israel's air defense systems and hit a hotel. Panic erupted, alarms blared, and civilians scrambled for safety in what felt like a nightmare scenario. For years, Israel considered Eilat relatively insulated from conflict zones, but this attack shattered that perception. What makes this even more shocking is the message behind the strike. The Houthis, a group entrenched in Yemen and backed by Iranian influence, have made it clear they view themselves as part of the resistance axis against Israel. By targeting Eilat, they sent a chilling message that nowhere is truly safe, not even the southernmost tip of Israel. The damage wasn't just physical, it was psychological, spreading fear among Israelis and raising serious questions about the effectiveness of the much vaunted Iron Dome and other missile defense systems. The IDF wasted no time in declaring that Yemen would pay a heavy price. In their words, they are preparing to unleash hell on Yemen. But what exactly does that mean? Is it just rhetoric to appease a frightened population, or are we about to witness an Israeli military campaign stretching far beyond Gaza and Lebanon? The answers could redefine the entire balance of power in the region. To understand the significance of this event, we need to rewind and look at the Houthis evolution. Once dismissed as a local militia fighting for influence in Yemen's civil war, they have grown into a formidable regional actor. Over the last decade, the Houthis have demonstrated a remarkable ability to build and operate drones and missiles with increasing range and accuracy. Many analysts believe that Iranian technology and training lie at the heart of this transformation. What used to be a ragtag insurgency is now capable of striking across the Red Sea into Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and now Israel. The Eilat hotel attack isn't just a random strike. It is a calculated move designed to show the Houthis reach and to rattle Israel's confidence. For Israel, this marks a nightmare scenario. Its military doctrine has always emphasized the importance of containing threats close to its borders. Gaza and Lebanon were bad enough, but Yemen, located thousands of kilometers away, presents a completely different challenge. If the Houthis can hit Eilat today, what's stopping them from targeting other Israeli assets tomorrow? Even more concerning is the symbolism. The attack came at a time when tensions in Gaza and Lebanon are already sky high. By opening another front, the Houthis are signaling that the battlefield is now multi-directional. This creates enormous pressure on the IDF, which has to stretch resources and strategy across several simultaneous threats. The Israeli government, already under intense scrutiny domestically, is now scrambling to respond in a way that projects strength without triggering uncontrollable escalation. The IDF's reaction was swift and fiery. Military spokespersons declared that Yemen would face unprecedented retaliation if such strikes continued. Their use of the phrase, hell on Yemen, wasn't chosen lightly. It was a direct attempt to send a message not only to the Houthis, but also to Iran, Hezbollah, and anyone else considering joining the fray. The phrase echoes past warnings Israel has issued before launching major offensives. But here lies the dilemma. Can Israel really follow through with such threats? Unlike Gaza or southern Lebanon, Yemen is far away, geographically isolated, and far more complicated to strike. Conducting air raids against the Houthis would require regional coordination, refueling capabilities, and risks of entangling other players like Saudi Arabia or even the United States. The Houthis, on the other hand, thrive on asymmetry. They don't operate like conventional armies with centralized bases that can be easily targeted. Instead, they use mountains, tunnels, and mobile launchers, making it difficult to completely neutralize them. This creates a dangerous cycle. Every strike against them risks retaliation, and every retaliation risks escalation. Israel's threat of bringing hell might sound powerful on television, but on the battlefield, it's not so simple. And yet, in the court of public opinion, Israel feels compelled to act. A strike on a hotel, a civilian target, undermines the image of security and control that Israel has always tried to project. Not responding could be perceived as weakness, something Israeli leaders believe they cannot afford in such a volatile environment. The Houthis' motives in striking Eilat are layered. On the surface, they framed it as a response to Israeli military actions in Gaza, claiming solidarity with Palestinians. But underneath, this is about regional power plays. By showing they can hit Israel directly, the Houthis elevate themselves in the hierarchy of so-called resistance groups. They want to prove they are more than just Yemen's rebels. They are part of a wider anti-Israel, anti-Western coalition. The attack also helps them domestically. Inside Yemen, where the war has dragged on for years, with massive humanitarian consequences, the Houthis need to rally their supporters. Striking Israel gives them a propaganda victory, distracting from internal problems and portraying themselves as champions of a global cause. For Iran, the Houthis are a valuable tool. Tehran can claim plausible deniability while still enjoying the benefits of watching its adversary, Israel, struggle with yet another front. It's a classic proxy strategy. What makes this dangerous is that each side believes escalation serves their interest. The Houthis gain legitimacy, Iran increases its leverage, and Israel justifies stronger military campaigns. But the danger is clear. If this continues, we are no longer talking about isolated incidents. We are staring at the potential of a region-wide conflict that draws in not just local actors, but global powers as well. Remember, Eilat sits on the Red Sea, a vital artery for global trade. Any sustained conflict there could disrupt shipping lanes and spark an economic crisis with consequences far beyond the Middle East. The attack on the hotel also exposes vulnerabilities in Israel's defense systems. For years, Israel has showcased the Iron Dome as an almost impenetrable shield against rockets and drones. While it has an impressive track record, it is not flawless. The Houthis appear to have exploited these flaws, perhaps by using swarming tactics or flying drones at low altitudes to evade detection. This raises uncomfortable questions within Israel. If a group like the Houthis can get through, what does that mean for the country's security when facing better equipped adversaries like Iran? The psychological effect cannot be underestimated. Israelis are used to living under threat, but they rely on the idea that their military can keep them safe. The image of a drone hitting a hotel directly undercuts that confidence. It spreads panic, fuels anger, and pressures the government to show decisive action. Internationally, the strike undermines Israel's reputation as a secure destination. Tourism, a vital sector in Eilat, will take a hit. Businesses may hesitate to invest in areas perceived as vulnerable. On a geopolitical scale, it forces Israel's allies, especially the United States, to reassess their strategies. Washington has long worried about the Houthis' increasing capabilities, especially their ability to threaten shipping routes in the Red Sea. Now, with Israel directly targeted, the U.S. finds itself in a difficult position. How much support can it provide without being dragged deeper into yet another Middle Eastern conflict? These questions hover ominously as Israel prepares its next move. Behind the heated rhetoric, there's a growing recognition that the conflict is expanding beyond traditional battlefields. Cyber warfare, drone technology, and asymmetric tactics are reshaping modern wars. The Houthis strike is a case study in how small groups with relatively limited resources can shake even the most advanced militaries. A drone that costs a few $1,000s can cause millions in damage, not to mention the psychological toll. This is the new face of war: cheap, mobile, and difficult to counter. For Israel, this means adapting quickly. Its military doctrine, built on fast, overwhelming offensives, struggles against enemies that don't rely on conventional armies or territory. The Houthis don't fear losing cities. They've already lived in a war-torn country for years. They thrive on surviving, striking unpredictably, and claiming symbolic victories. This poses a question Israel doesn't like to face: can military power alone solve this problem? Analysts warn that escalating against Yemen might achieve little more than fueling the Houthis propaganda. Every airstrike that kills civilians in Yemen could strengthen the Houthis narrative of resistance, drawing more recruits and sympathy. Meanwhile, Israel's threats of bringing hell may backfire if they don't deliver concrete results. A prolonged back and forth could bog down Israel in a conflict it doesn't want, stretching its resources thin and opening the door for more enemies to pile on. This is the reality of the multipolar Middle East, where every action sparks chain reactions and no conflict remains isolated for long. The global reaction to the Eilat strike has been cautious but concerned. Western powers, particularly the United States and European allies, condemned the attack and reaffirmed Israel's right to defend itself. However, there is also unease about Israel's vow to escalate against Yemen. International diplomats worry that retaliating too strongly could ignite a full-scale regional conflict. The Red Sea, already tense due to Houthi attacks on international shipping, is a critical trade route for oil and goods. Any intensification of fighting there would have ripple effects on global markets. Saudi Arabia and the UAE, both of whom have fought the Houthis in the past, are watching closely. They have their own scars from Houthi drone and missile attacks, particularly on oil facilities. While they quietly support any blow against the Houthis, they also fear being dragged back into a war they've been trying to exit. Iran, unsurprisingly, has praised the strike, framing it as a legitimate act of resistance against Israel. Tehran is unlikely to directly intervene, but will use the Houthis' success as proof that its regional network is working. The United Nations has called for restraint, emphasizing the catastrophic humanitarian consequences Yemen already faces. Millions there are struggling with famine and disease, and an Israeli offensive would only worsen the crisis. Yet the grim truth is that when military logic and political pride take over, humanitarian warnings often fall on deaf ears. The world is now anxiously waiting to see whether Israel acts on its threats or steps back from the brink. Domestically in Israel, the Eilat strike has created a political storm. Opposition leaders are accusing the government of negligence, saying the failure to intercept the drone proves Israel's defenses are not as strong as claimed. Public anger is rising, especially among residents of Eilat, who feel they were left unprotected. Prime Minister Netanyahu, already under pressure from ongoing conflicts in Gaza and Lebanon, now faces another crisis that could undermine his credibility. His government thrives on projecting strength, but each new front makes that harder to maintain. The Israeli media has been dominated by footage of the damaged hotel, interviews with terrified civilians, and endless debates about what the IDF should do next. Military officials are calling for decisive retaliation to restore deterrence, while others warn against overextending into a war with Yemen. Among the public, fear mixes with anger. People want security restored, but many also worry about being dragged into a war on multiple fronts. For soldiers and reservists, morale is being tested. They already face deployments on several fronts, and the prospect of adding Yemen to the list feels overwhelming. Families of soldiers are voicing concerns, asking whether Israel is fighting too many battles at once. This internal strain is perhaps the most dangerous part of the equation. A divided home front makes it harder to wage war abroad. For Israel, maintaining unity while responding forcefully is a delicate balancing act, and one that could decide the outcome of this escalating conflict. In Yemen, the strike has been celebrated by Houthi supporters as a triumph against a powerful adversary. Crowds reportedly gathered in the capital Sana'a to cheer the drone strike, waving flags and chanting slogans against Israel. State-run Houthi media broadcast the event as a major victory, portraying it as proof that Yemen, despite its suffering, can stand up to one of the most powerful militaries in the region. This narrative serves multiple purposes. It boosts the Houthis' popularity at home, legitimizes their rule in the eyes of supporters, and positions them as part of the global anti-Israel movement. It also distracts from Yemen's humanitarian disaster, where millions remain in desperate need of food and medicine. The propaganda victory may embolden the Houthis to attempt more strikes, believing that each successful attack strengthens their position. For ordinary Yemenis, however, the prospect of Israeli retaliation is terrifying. Yemen has already endured years of bombing campaigns, and another foreign offensive could bring even more suffering. Human rights groups are warning that any large-scale Israeli strike on Yemen would be catastrophic, worsening what the UN has already called the world's worst humanitarian crisis. In this sense, the Houthis attack is a double-edged sword. While it boosts their standing politically, it risks bringing devastating consequences to the very population they claim to represent. The cycle of provocation and retaliation threatens to trap Yemen in even deeper chaos, with civilians paying the heaviest price. This is the grim backdrop to the celebrations in Sana'a. So where does this all lead? The drone strike on Eilat and Israel's vow of retaliation mark a dangerous turning point in the Middle East. Each actor, Houthis Israel, Iran, and regional powers, believes escalation serves their interests, but together they are creating the conditions for a much larger war. The Houthis feel emboldened, Israel feels pressured, and Iran feels vindicated. The international community urges restraint, but history shows that once violence spirals, it is incredibly hard to contain. The risk here isn't just another round of tit-for-tat strikes. It's the opening of a new front in a conflict that already spans Gaza, Lebanon, and Syria. If Israel follows through with its threats, Yemen could become yet another battlefield, dragging more nations into the fray. The economic impact could be severe, especially if the Red Sea becomes unsafe for global shipping. The humanitarian toll, already staggering in Yemen, would skyrocket. For ordinary people, whether in Israel, Yemen, or elsewhere, the future looks uncertain, overshadowed by fear and instability. This is the reality of modern warfare. Localized strikes can trigger global consequences. The question now is whether leaders on all sides will step back from the brink or plunge headfirst into a conflict that could reshape the Middle East for years to come. One thing is certain: the drone strike on Eilat has changed the game, and nothing will be the same again.